Hey friends, it's Angela, and welcome back to another episode of High Performance Health. Today's episode is short but powerful. If you've been struggling with weight loss resistance, fatigue, or those frustrating midlife changes in your body, this is going to give you a whole new lens to look through. And let me just say, if you've been feeling like you're doing everything right with your diet and your workouts, but your body isn't responding the way it used to, it's not your fault, and it's not a lack of willpower. What if the real issue was actually hidden in your gut or your toxic load or even your nutrient levels? Today, I'm joined by nutritionist and functional medicine practitioner Louise Digby, and we unpack the real reasons that women feel stuck when it comes to energy, metabolism, weight, and their skin in perimenopause. In this short episode, we talk about why gut imbalances are often so silent, how toxic load messes with your hormones and fat loss goals. We also discuss the nutrient insufficiencies sabotaging your energy and metabolism, and what brittle nails, thinning hair, and poor recovery are really trying to tell you. We also touch on how histamine intolerance and gut issues are linked to adult acne and skin flare-ups in perimenopause. This is the stuff that so many women are not really hearing about, but once you understand it, it all really starts to make sense. And what I'll do is I'll also link to the full episode in the show notes below so you can go back and listen to that. But for now, tune in to this little bite-sized clip. The way that we store that fat deposition, and also the loss in muscle mass for women that haven't been doing things like resistance training. What have you found? I'm curious to be, I know you do quite a lot of testing as well, in terms of blood work and lab work. What have you found are the key things that hold women back, if you like, from weight loss at that stage of life?
There are some kind of common themes that we see, and things, well, the hormones are absolutely core to it all, but your hormones are affected by so many things, and we often see imbalances in gut health, whether that is a lack of beneficial bacteria or an overgrowth of non-beneficial bacteria or poor absorption or something like that going on in the gut, which all really impacts hormones and inflammation in the body and your metabolic health. We see that in so many women, and many of them weren't aware that they had gut issues. They didn't have obvious IBS symptoms or anything like that. Sometimes they do, but often, it's not obvious that there's stuff going on with the gut. So the gut is a real key one. Things like toxic load as well is something that we often see is raised in a lot of women. And that's exposure to things like pollutants, or chemicals from skincare products or various other things, loads of things that we are exposed to in the environment and from our food that our body has to eliminate. And when we have quite a high toxic load, that can be very disruptive to our hormones, because we also have to detox our hormones via the same pathways in the liver. So we can end up with imbalances in our hormones if we're not detoxing efficiently. So those are a couple of key areas: gut health and a high toxic load. Also things like nutrient deficiencies we see a lot, even with people who have a really good diet, because the food that we eat is quite deplete of nutrients, even if you're eating fresh fruits and vegetables every day. And just modern life is very demanding on nutrients, high stress and people not getting enough sleep or their guts not being balanced all impacts how much nutrition we need and how much we're getting from our food. So we see a lot of nutritional insufficiencies, I should say, because they're not necessarily deficient, but they don't have enough to function optimally. So those are probably some of the key things that we see.
And with the nutritional insufficiencies, if someone has that, how would that be sort of showing up for them, in terms of their symptoms that they might be experiencing? I know a lot of women, particularly in perimenopause, will complain of low energy, for example. But how would the nutrient insufficiencies be affecting their metabolic health?
Yeah, fatigue is definitely one of the key symptoms to look out for. And, that can certainly be a sign of compromised metabolic health. When your metabolic health is compromised, your energy production is kind of failing. You're not converting your food into energy efficiently. You're not burning fat efficiently. And so that can look like really stubborn weight. It can look like a change in your body fat distribution. It can look like fatigue. It can be dry hair and skin, brittle hair, brittle nails, where your body's kind of slowing down and not repairing as quickly. It can look like constipation, feeling cold a lot of the time if your metabolism is kind of slowing as a result of this. So just like a general slowing down and lack of energy, lack of concentration, sometimes poor sleep, not feeling refreshed when you wake up in the morning, maybe not feeling like you're recovering from exercise very well. If you're feeling like days after you've worked out, you're still feeling achy and sluggish and it takes you a long time to get back to normal, then that is a key sign that your metabolism is perhaps not running as efficiently as it could be and your metabolic health isn't as good as it could be.
And what are some of the key nutrient insufficiencies that you see with people whose metabolism is kind of slower, and they often women will complain, right, that they've got cold hands or feet quite a lot of the time, that they feel like it's sort of unfair in a way, that they don't feel like they're eating particularly much, but the weight is going on, or at least there's weight loss resistance where they don't seem able to lose it. What have you found? Are there key nutrients, for example, that come up?
We see B vitamins a lot, not necessarily deficient, but we see people having a really high demand for B vitamins. And, it's partly because we need B vitamins for so many things in the body, making energy, making hormones, but also we have a really high demand for them when we are under stress, which so many women are. So B vitamins are ones that we see a lot of. Vitamin D, just time and time again, see that insufficient. Very few people seem to have optimal vitamin D unless they are making a conscious effort to supplement that. Magnesium is one that, much like the B vitamins, we have a really high demand for. We generally struggle to get enough of it in the diet because it's in really small amounts in quite a lot of foods, but it's such small amounts that it's very difficult to get enough overall. And again, when we're stressed, we need more magnesium. If we drink a lot of coffee, we get rid of more magnesium. If we're exercising a lot, we need more. So that's one that, pretty much most people we work with seem to need more magnesium.
Yes, I've noticed that. I know some women get concerned. So when they're taking B vitamins, for example, and then they have some blood work done and their B12 is like skyrocketing, and then they sort of like drop back on the B vitamins because they're concerned around that. And then their sort of energy is dropping. What would you say around that, and how do you manage it?
We don't want the B12 to be super high, but what the kind of standard blood tests tell you is normal is pretty low, really. We want it to be up the higher end of that range. And if you're taking a B complex, it could be that there is a bit too much B12 in there, but you need the other B vitamins, or it might be that you're overlapping and maybe if you're taking a multivitamin as well, or another hormonal supplement, there could well be multiple sources of B12 in your supplements. So it's just a case of looking at what you're actually taking, making sure that you're not overdoing it, but also not being too worried about it being at the higher end of the normal range. It is a water soluble vitamin, so we don't store it in the body and we can eliminate it.
And with the sort of hair you were mentioning there, like brittle nails, hair, dry hair, and things like that. One of the things I see, particularly like when many women in that sort of first stage of perimenopause, they experience heavier bleeding, and there's sort of this vicious cycle where heavy bleeding is causing low iron, and then low iron is perpetuating the heavy bleeding, and that can feel really tiresome as well because they feel so low on energy. what are the key nutrients? Because it's something that many women experience in terms of hair, that they feel like their hair is thinner, particularly then when estrogen drops, they feel like they're using collagen. What would you say are the key things? And have you found anything that you think is really supportive of like more lustrous hair, if you like? There's so many different supplements that are out there. But I've yet to find someone who really says, you know what, this was really life-changing for my hair.
Yeah, and I think that's because everyone is so individual. And, you know, for one person who's having hair loss because of perimenopause or because of the metabolism being sluggish, you know, they're going to have a different underlying cause of that than someone else. But, you know, the key nutrients we tend to think about are things like iron, but also selenium, lysine, zinc, and just making sure that you're getting enough protein as well, because we need protein to make our hormones. We need protein to make our hair. It is made of protein. So if we not getting enough protein in the diet, then we're going to start to see a bigger impact of that on our hair and our skin and our nails and muscle repair and lots of things in the body. But yeah, the collagen is the one thing that I get consistent feedback from my clients about. And it's always difficult to know, you know, is it the collagen, or is it because they've changed up their diet, or is it because of something else they're taking? But a lot of clients seem to link back their hair improving to starting taking collagen. And I'm always a little bit skeptical because they're usually changing multiple things at once. But collagen, I think a good quality one, can be quite helpful for hair, particularly skin as well. And, you know, when it comes to skin, a lot of people seem to see a difference quite quickly with their skin. Hair always seems to take a fair bit longer to notice any real change.
Yeah, whereas with skin, it's a bit quicker. While we're on the topic of skin, then, another common thing for women is, and not all women, but many women will experience kind of breakouts that maybe they haven't had before. And they're kind of like, this is what's going on. You know, I never had acne as a teenager even. And now all of a sudden, as an adult, I'm getting it. Have you found that gut health is key in relation to treating acne? Is it I know, like, you know, nutrients like zinc can make a difference to the skin in terms of inflammation. I'm curious what you found in relation to people who may be listening to this and thinking, oh my god, what if my skin's out of control, what can I do?
Yeah, definitely. I always think of perimenopause as like reverse puberty. So, you know, the stuff that you experience during puberty comes back again in perimenopause, typically, if the underlying foundations aren't well balanced. And yeah, definitely gut health is a key part of that. When you go into perimenopause, your histamine tolerance can reduce. And what that means is that histamine, which is a hormone that we produce in the body, but also is found in food, you can become worse at kind of breaking it down. And histamine is something that can be very disruptive to your hormones. So that lowered histamine tolerance is one of the mechanisms through which we can start to develop hormone imbalances. And a lot of women experience things like rosacea, or, you know, worsened rosacea around perimenopause, and that can be one of the key reasons why. But working on gut health and the balance of bacteria in the gut is one of the main ways that you can start to address that rosacea and those acne type problems, but also similar things, or things that are caused by histamine, are also other inflammatory symptoms like joint pain and sinus problems become quite common around that time as well, and feeling like you're developing more allergies and intolerances. So all those sorts of things tend to improve when you start to address your gut health.